You've probably never seen this man before. When I tell you his name, Edward Rushton, you probably won't recognize it. Gandhi, Malcolm X, Mandela, all names we associate with a fight for freedom in difficult or impossible circumstances. We believe this amazing man should be as well known. But even in his home city, Liverpool, his only public presence is his name carved at the foot of his son's gravestone, an afterthought. One of Edward Rushton's achievements was the establishment of the Royal Liverpool School for the Blind, only the second in the world and still existing. Steve Binns, official Liverpool historian, is blind himself and attended Rushton's school.
So Edward Rushton, hero to be reclaimed, goes to sea at 16 to make money out of the slave trade, starts helping the slaves, loses his sight, and with every disadvantage comes back to the centre of the slave trade and actually goes out there and tells them they shouldn't do it. Rushton was your man. He was your man in a hard time. He was your man in a lost cause, and he stood for the right and always did so.
As a young sailor, Rushton was saved from drowning by a young African friend, Kwamina, who himself died in the act. Shortly after his friend's death, Rushton was threatened by his captain with irons and a mutiny charge for bringing aid to kidnapped Africans below decks. Rushton disobeyed again, and as a result caught contagious ophthalmia in the confined conditions below. By the time he landed back in Liverpool, aged 17, he was completely blind. For most, this would have been a life sentence of begging and poverty, and a probable early death. Not Rushton.
Hi, my name's Gillian Kearney, and I'm playing Isabella in Unsung. That's Edward Rushton's wife. I couldn't believe that I didn't know. There was so little that I knew about him, given what he's achieved in the city. I didn't realise that he'd set up the Liverpool School, for the indigent blind, and that was like the biggest next to Paris in the world. You just sort of think he sort of achieved more as a blind person. It was sort of because of the adversity he flourished.
Rushton spent 5 years in relative poverty, educating himself via a boy who would read to him. He became a lifelong campaigner for a whole variety of human rights, particularly campaigning against slavery. If there was a dangerous cause, Rushton almost certainly took it up. He lost 2 small businesses as a result, suffered poverty, and was shot at, but he kept going.
Even though he did make enemies of his friends, we've discussed that at some point, he took people with him, he effected change, and he's left a legacy that's made this a richer city.
Having been blind for nearly 40 years, Rushton underwent a series of operations to his remaining eye, without anaesthetic and refusing to be bound. These excruciating operations were successful, and Rushton was able to see his wife and children for the first time. But we think that it was his blindness and the sacrifice of his African friend which were the 2 driving forces behind him becoming such a dauntless campaigner for human rights.
Although he was political, he was also a father, a husband, he was in love, he was a poet, he was an artist, he was creative. He tried to improve the world that he was living in against great social adversity, and I think in a time when education is threatened now, the fact that he fought so hard to be educated can teach us all something about how we should try to live.
We think Edward Rushton should be an international figure. A new play, Unsung, based on events in his life, will open at the Everyman Theatre Liverpool next March and then tour. It will feature blind and deaf actors and a signer who is embedded in the action. Dada Fest and Turf Love are really proud that we're 3/4 of the way to our budget. We're inviting you to pledge. Be a co-producer with us and complete our campaign of rediscovery. Our crowdfunding target of £4,000 will pay for a specially commissioned audio-visual design, making the play accessible to all audiences. And every £10 donated before the end of June will generate an additional £6.66 from match funding. Please help us unearth our forgotten hero, Edward Rushton, from his unjust obscurity. Press the button to the right of the screen if you want to donate.